Class 8 English, Lesson number 1, Unit 3 and 4. Good morning, students. Today I am back again with the remaining part of the lesson titled The Best Christmas Present in the World. Unit 3. I folded the letter again and slipped it carefully back into its envelope. I kept awake all night. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I drove into Bridport, just a few miles away. Now, who is I? Do you remember? Who is I? I here is the writer. He slipped it back into the envelope. He was keeping the whole night awake. He was disturbed. So he decided to drive into Bridport, which is a few miles away. I drove into Bridport, just a few miles away. I asked a boy walking his dog where Copper Beeches was. House number 12 turned out to be nothing but a burnt-out shell. The roof gaping, the windows boarded up. So this is where Connie is staying. She's supposed to be staying. It turned out to be a burnt-out shell. The roof gaping, opening, and windows all boarded up. I knocked at the house next door and asked if anyone knew the whereabouts of Mrs. Macpherson. "Oh, yes," said the old man in his sleepers. He knew her well. "A lovely old lady," he told me, "a bit muddle-headed. So they never knew her. They never knew her to be a lovely lady, old lady, and a muddle-headed one at that too. But at her age, she was entitled to be, wasn't she? 101 years old. So how old was Connie? Connie was 101 years old. So the neighbor says that at such an age, at 101 years of age, anyone would be so muddle-headed. She had been in the house when it caught fire. No one really knew how the fire had started, but it could well have been candles. She used candles rather than electricity because she always thought electricity was too expensive. The fireman had got her out just in time. She was in a nursing home now, he told me. Bellington House on the Dorchester Road on the other side of the town. So the neighbor gives some information about the whereabouts of Mrs. Jim Macpherson, or Connie. The house had caught fire, and she was inside when the fire got burnt. The house got burnt. And it was lucky for her that the firemen came and saved her in time. And how did the fire start? It is assumed that the fire started from candles, as Mrs. Jim Macpherson preferred to use candles rather than electricity. She thought that electricity was more expensive than candles, and so she was using them. And that is how the house got burnt. Now, she is in a nursing home. And what is the address of the nursing home? Burlington House on the Dorchester Road on the other side of the town. Now, the author is going to find Connie in the nursing home. I found Burlington House nursing home easily enough. There were paper chains up in the hallway, and a lighted Christmas tree stood in the corner with a lopsided angel on top. I said I was a friend come to visit Mrs. Macpherson to bring her a Christmas present. Now, the author found the nursing home, and he says, the author says he wanted to meet Connie, because he has brought a Christmas present for her. Children, what do you think is a Christmas present brought by the author for Mrs. Jim McPherson? The writer means to say that he has brought the letter which was treasured by Connie. It was a treasure for her. So this is regarded as a Christmas present by the writer. Now, you have seen what the Christmas present is. I could see through into the dining room where everyone was wearing a paper hat and singing. The matron had a hat on too and seemed happy enough to see me. She even offered me a mince pie. She walked me along the corridor. Mrs. McPherson is not in with the others, she told me. She's rather confused today, so we thought it best if she had a good rest. She has no family, you know. No one visits, so I'm sure she'll be only too pleased to see you. She took me into a conservatory with wicker chairs and potted plants all around and left me. So once again, we are able to get some information about Connie. The matron tells our writer, our author, that Mrs. Jim McPherson has got no family. Nobody comes to see her. So, Mrs. Connie would be only too happy to have a visitor. A visitor with a Christmas present too. Saying that, she left him. The old lady was sitting in a wheelchair, her hands folded in her lap. She was the old lady. Who is the old lady? Connie, Mrs. McPherson, Jim McPherson. So she was seated on a wheelchair. That means she is very old and she is not able to move about on her own. Her hands folded in her lap. She had silver white hair pinned into a wispy bun. Silver white hair because of her age. She is, what is her age? 101 years old. She was gazing out at the garden. She was gazing out, just looking out at the garden. Hello, I said. She turned and looked up at me vacantly. Vacantly. She turned and looked at the sound. And her eyes, the way she was looking at the man, seemed to be vacant look, without really understanding, without really recognizing what she was seeing. Hello, I said. She turned and looked up at me vacantly. Happy Christmas, Connie, I went on. I found this. I think it's yours. So, the thing was handed over to her. I think it's yours. As I was speaking, her eyes never left my face. I opened the tin box and gave it to her. That was a moment her eyes lit up with recognition and her face became suffused with a sudden glow of happiness. So, you could see some signs of emotion, you could see some signs of recognition or understanding only when the content of the box was given. What was the content of the box? What did the box have? The letter. So only when she saw the letter did she realize, did she recognize, show some signs of recognition. So the letter meant so much for her. I explained about the desk, about how I had found it, but I don't think she was listening. So she has to be given some reason how he came with the letter, how he came with a tin box. So he was trying to explain. But it was obvious that she did not hear him. She was not listening. For a while, she said nothing but stroked the letter tenderly with her fingertips. She has no words to express. She was only with tender hands, she stroked the letter. Suddenly, she reached out and took my hand. Her eyes were filled with tears. "You told me you'd come home by Christmas, dearest," she said. "And here you are, the best Christmas present in the world. Come closer, Jim dear, sit down." So, you have been told before that she is a little muddle-headed. And when she sees the letter carried by the young man, she is forgetting who she is. She is forgetting her age. She is going back to the lanes of her memory, and she is the Connie way back in the year 1915 when she was young. And so she mistook the young man for her husband. With tears in her eyes, she said, "You told me you'd come home by Christmas, dearest. And here you are, the best Christmas present in the world. Come closer, Jim, dear, sit down." So, for the man, as he had explained to the matron, the Christmas present was the letter for Connie. But for Connie, the best Christmas present was the presence of the man whom she has mistaken for Jim. I sat down beside her and she kissed my cheek. I read your letter so often, Jim, every day. I wanted to hear your voice in my head. It always made me feel you were with me. Now you're back. You can read it to me yourself. Would you do that for me, Jim dear? I just want to hear your voice again. I'd love that so much. And then perhaps we'll have some tea. I've made you a nice Christmas cake, marzipan all around. I know how much you love marzipan. So she wanted to hear the voice of Jim. So she's asking our author to read the letter himself. She wanted to hear his voice. The saddest part is that she says that she has made a cake, a Christmas cake. In her mind, she is no longer the old woman that she is. She thinks herself as the young Connie that she had been once. The young Connie who was waiting for the return of Jim from the battlefield. The young Connie who has made a cake for Jim to be taken to the battlefield with marzipan all over. So she says that she has made a cake. Do you think that she can make a cake now? Never. She is invalid now. She is sitting in a wheelchair. But in her mind, in her imagination, she is still the young lady. And so she says she has made a cake, a Christmas cake for him with marzipan all over. So we have come to the end of our story. If you were the writer, it would be very confusing for us how to react when Connie mistook you for Jim. So, children, I would like you to write down a few lines, imagining yourself as our author. Now, you will imagine that you have met Connie, but you will go back home. You imagine yourself as the writer and write a few lines on how you reacted at the request of Connie. Connie requested you to sit with her and have the cake with marzipan all over and to sit with her. Now you are going to write, imagining yourself as the writer, how you reacted when she requested you to sit by her. So don't write long, say about 10 sentences, and please don't forget to show it to me through your WhatsApp. As of now, thank you so much. Good day.